Panmunjom, Korea, 1953. Operation Big Switch. The return of U.S. prisoners of war to the free world. Here at Freedom Village, the repatriation team assembles. The welcome mat is out. When captured, these men did not know what would happen to them. They were never informed on what they could expect. How did they fare? You can't judge by appearances. Their ordeal was both physical and mental. From these men, we learned what happened to our soldiers who fell into communist hands. They were subjected to every communist trick designed to confuse their thinking. Although they were unprepared to meet the communist techniques of interrogation and indoctrination, in this battle to capture their minds, a great majority of our men did resist successfully. Among those who resisted successfully were those who realized they could not let their buddies and families down because they would have to face them when liberated. Those soldiers who realized it was the duty of a prisoner of war to continue to resist even after capture, returned with records of unblemished loyalty and with honor. In North Korea, our fighting men had to learn how to resist communist interrogation and indoctrination the hard way. Experience can be a bitter teacher, but however bitter our experience has been, it was invaluable. For we've learned a great deal about the methods used by the communists to exploit prisoners of war, and how they use propaganda as a military weapon. We are not training our fighting men to be POWs. The American soldier will fight as hard and as long as he possibly can. But we must take into consideration those situations in which it may be impossible to avoid capture by the enemy. Only a relatively small percentage of men were captured in Korea. Among these, a few yielded to communist pressure and became collaborators. But, as we all know, the damage even one collaborator can do to his country, his buddies, and himself can be far-reaching. Of course, if captured, every one of us will make every effort to escape, and at the earliest opportunity. However, today, we are here to tell you some things to do and some things not to do if you should ever become a POW. The voice of experience carries authority. We have with us one of the Korean POWs, Master Sergeant John Driscoll. Serial number RA88295-410. Date of birth 13 April 1922. Sergeant, you had one of the best resistance records in Korea, so I'd like to ask you a few questions. There's been quite a bit of talk about some weird power the communists are supposed to have, which can change and control a person's thinking. Newspapers call it brainwashing.
Yes, sir. I've heard a lot about brainwashing since I came back, but the commies called it indoctrination. All they did was try and sell us their line. Wasn't anything mysterious about it. Only at first, we didn't know what was going on. If we had...
You think there would have been more of those the commies called reactionaries? That is, men who actively resisted the communist indoctrination program?
I'm sure of it.
Well, Sergeant, that's why we made this training film, so that we'll be better prepared if that happens again. I'm sure that many of your own experiences are in it, and although we've put them into a war of the future, they reflect what happened in Korea. So I'd like to have you sit in with me and help explain the things that we're going to show.
Glad to.
All right, let's get rolling. Here you are, just captured. You're approaching a collecting point not far behind the enemy's lines. You did not surrender as a mass or group. Each of you resisted capture until you no longer had the strength or the means to fight. Your guards, Europeans, Oriental or European. Communist techniques are similar. You're bone tired, and because you fought until the bitter end, you undoubtedly will not be in the best physical condition and mental state. Naturally, you may be scared because you don't know what may happen to you. There are lots of things to think about, but you may be too tired to think.
That's the very time to be on your toes.
Right, Sergeant. Here especially, you need all your wits about you. Remember, as you move deeper into enemy territory, your chances of escape decrease. Stay alert for this chance to escape so that you can recognize it when it comes. But if it doesn't, don't let your guard down. The first communist psychological weapons aren't far away. You can resist them. Isn't it so, Sergeant?
It certainly is. In the long run, those who resisted eventually were treated no worse than the others.
There's going to be nothing new or irresistible about these communist techniques. In fact, they're based on a system long used by civilian law enforcement agencies in communist countries and other police states. For instance, threatening, accusing him. Then, a change of interrogator. Who suddenly treats him well, sometimes known as the Mutt and Jeff technique.
They use that same reverse play on us.
Yes, the communists often give you the friendly treatment first. This is to throw you off guard and make you more receptive. A time like this calls for a smoke.
I saw a joker take one from a commie. But it didn't take long to find out there was a string attached to anything they offered you. Any favor you accepted put you right where the enemy wanted you, under obligation to him.
Don't be fooled by the uniform. It covers a multitude of sinners around here, including your first indoctrinator. A welcome address, he calls this. Here's what they call their kind of government. Democracy? Typical communist word juggling, hiding dictatorship behind a word that literally means rule by the people. They love peace, too, provided you don't get in their way to world conquest. This is you, or rather your system, he tells you. Strange welcome this is, attacking your country and everything you believe in. You always start the wars, even when resisting an invasion. But it isn't really your fault. You're only the victims of your criminal profiteers and leaders, whom you should have shot long ago. He doesn't say anything about our selecting our leaders by free elections, nor that force and violence have no place in our democratic form of government. You're going to hear this sort of thing over and over. The big lie, repeated time and again. It's the repetition technique. Wasn't that your experience, Sergeant?
Yes, sir. They keep hammering away at it. The indoctrinators we had to listen to had an answer for everything. They could start with black is white and almost get you to believe it. Smart cookies.
They're trained for the job of trying to make a sucker out of you. Don't let them. Don't buy their fancy labels, especially at their prices.